Get 'em.
Welcome, folks. Y'all come on in and make yourself at home. This here, well, this is the Rolling Thunder Podcast, your home for all things Rolling Thunder. This episode is brought to you by Mossy Oak, because everything is better in Bottomland. Kent Cartridge, quality matters. Performance counts. Shen Gear, waterfowl gear that is built better. And Benelli USA, dominate the skies.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rolling Thunder Podcast.
What's up, buddy?
Man, had a good Easter weekend.
Good. I'm glad you had a good Easter weekend.
Did you have a good Easter weekend?
I did have a good Easter weekend.
Good.
I got home late. Early. I got come home from South Carolina last week, and Keto and I drove home Friday afternoon. Got to his house about 10:30, late enough that I didn't really feel like driving it on to Summerville, and got up about 4 and rolled out and rolled into my house about 8 o'clock. Kind of bummed around on Saturday and had a nice weekend with the family.
Good.
So
did we. About the same. Except we went and shot a turkey Saturday morning, but, you know.
There you
I
go.
woke up.
First bird?
Yeah, it was his first bird.
Heck yeah.
I've been trying to get him the turkey for 3 years because I carried him and his brother 2 years ago, and his brother shot his first one. And we've been trying about every year since to kill him. I almost said professional bass fisherman. He wants to be. He fishes the Bassmaster High School Series.
Oh, cool.
Last tournament he fished, they won on Chickamauga.
I'll be dang.
150 boat tournament, they won. And
Wow.
so his springs are a little tied up,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah.
But I asked his dad, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, if he had this one open. He said, "Yep." I said, "Don't make any plans for him because we're going hunting Saturday morning."
Huh.
We were in the woods for about an hour.
Jeez. Well, that's a life decision.
Yeah.
Road forks right there. When I heard somebody say, actually, one of Jason Hart said the other day, we were together in South Carolina, and he said, "Man," he said, "I've been, at the Bassmaster Classic and the blah blah blah." And he's doing all these community things, for his job at Mossy Oak. And he was like, this guy was like, "I love to turkey hunt, but boy, it sure is hard to go turkey hunting when the fish are biting." He said, "I looked at him, old boy, and I said, you and me, we are not the same."
Yeah, because people like us are like, it's hard to go fishing when the turkeys are gone.
It ain't hard. It's impossible. Because I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Cool.
I like.
Oh, they're on bed?
catching.
Cool. Well, tell me how you do. I'm going to be over here.
Yeah. So this is a young man that you knew from
Church, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his dad and my dad went to college together.
Very cool.
And so I grew up, and John's turned into one of my good friends too, and he's got 3 boys, and 2 of them have been carried to the turkey woods, and collectively 2 turkeys have been shot in an hour and a half.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
Bennett shot his at 5:54 3 years ago when I took him and he shot his. For 22 minutes.
That's awesome.
And then Corbin shot his in less than an hour.
What did he think? Was he bit by the bug? Or is he back out there chunking crankbaits?
I looked at him. I said, "Does it make you want to quit bass fishing?" He goes, "Mm-mm." I was like, "Dang it."
Well,
it's like, I gave it a shot.
Hunter recruitment's not everything.
But it was
good.
cool. It's his last youth season. He just turned 16, so it was his last one.
Okay.
So I was able to get lucky with him.
Did y'all hunt a private farm that you had or public access?
No, we went and hunted somewhere public.
Oh, cool.
Just because literally all of my private land is vanished in Middle Tennessee.
Oh.
I don't have any more connections. My last lease sold. Last spring was the last time I got to hunt.
And make a neighborhood out of it?
No, a doctor from Dallas, Texas came in and bought it. He bought the 77 acres we leased and the 8 acres next to it with a little house on it for $1.8 million.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Gracious.
It's not. It was like an 1,800 square foot house. 85 acres, $1.8 million.
Oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
unbelievable.
You want to kind of break the hunt down, give us the story? Let's do a little beyond the hunt.
I'd love to do a beyond the hunt on Corbin. So this place, I'm not going to disclose any information on it because it's like the last frontier of honey holes that we have on public, but it's boat access only. You can't walk to it. You can't drive a truck to a foot traffic point. You have to get to it by boat. And so we got there. We got to the ramp probably about 5:30-ish, 5:15, a little early. Still got beat. There was a guy up there that was taking his kids hunting too, and went up there and talked to him. And I was like, hey, where y'all plan on going? I want to stay out of y'all's way, whatever. He said, we're going to come out of here and make a left and go up here, and there's a cut back there. I don't know if you're familiar with it and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. Then we'll just go to the right, knowing full well that going to the right was my first-round draft pick anyway. But I was like, you know what, yeah, y'all got here first. You can go where you want to go. Right. And,
so you're telling me there's a bird over there. We've got a plan B.
Yep, we've got plan B. And so they put in and go, we put in and go, and we're in no hurry. So we just kind of idled back there and just looking on this, because sometimes they'll roost on the creek. Mm-hmm. I've seen them roost over the water before in there. And so we're just I didn't want to go blowing through there and spook them or pass one up or whatever. So we just idled back probably a mile or so, maybe not quite that far, and get to where I wanted to listen. And no sooner do I cut the motor off, I hear a gobble back off behind us. I'm like, did you hear that? And he said, About that time he gobbled again. I was like, did you hear him that time? He said, no. I said, well, look that way and listen. And he gobbled again. He goes, okay, I heard that one. I was like, all right, well, that one's pretty good ways on private land, so we'll see if there's anything else we can do. And I go to stand up, and I heard 3 birds gobble straight back where there's no telling how many turkeys me, my dad, and my brother have killed back there. Same block of woods. They're always there. And I'm like I know exactly where they are.
Yep, gonna go kill those.
So we park the boat, get out, and we start walking. And I just wanted to let them gobble again to see where they're at. And from where we parked the boat, they were maybe 250 yards. But I knew that there was a big field on the other side of them, and so I kind of wanted to push it a little bit and get in tight with them. And so I looked at Corbin. I was like, you're going to have to sneak like you've never snuck before, dude. Luckily, it had rained. It rained all Friday, so the leaves were wet, and it was in between us and them was cedar trees. So we got to slip in there pretty quiet. And
it was pretty dark Saturday morning, too, with all the clouds.
That cloud cover helped us out big time. But we get in there, get set. 2 deer start blowing at us, and I'm like, oh no! And we're at the tree that I wanted to sit down at. I'm like this is done for. Deer blows again. They gobble at the deer. I was like, all right, we're good. Never mind. They don't care. And so we sit down, probably 75, 80 yards from them, and they're down in this real tight, a lot tighter than I like getting. And they were down in this little bowl down in the creek bottom, and I could tell they didn't have any hens, but at least best I could figure. I couldn't hear any, and they were gobbling in every direction like they were turning on a clock, just kind of like announcing their presence to the world. And so I'm like, I think I can kind of be a little rambunctious with them and maybe lean into them a little bit. And so kind of let them know that I was there, didn't get too crazy with them on the limb. And I could tell they flew down, and then I kind of started to lay into them like that video I sent you. They gobbled 8-10 times in 45 seconds. And right after that I sent you, I mean, they were unbelievably vocal. We heard 6 different birds and probably 100 different gobbles before 6:30. And I'm like, okay, I think they're going to come up this bowl, and they're probably going to come more to the left because it's more open over there. So kind of get to where you can go and face left and make a shot on him. And he goes, there's a skunk. I was like, there's a what? There's a skunk right here.
Tip of that fan.
I'm like, how close is right here? And he just takes his fingers off his gun and point, and it's like 15 feet from us. And I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, well, he doesn't know we're here. He's like, I don't want to get sprayed. I'm like, you're not going to get sprayed. Just relax. And he's as big as I am.
Right.
And he's a 16-year-old, 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
And he starts leaning like pushing against me, like I don't want to get sprayed. I'm like, Corbin,
maybe it won't sting as bad if it gets on half you and half
and
him.
I was like, Corbin, if you booger these turkeys because of that damn skunk, you're walking home. And I don't want to get sprayed, and so I just pick up a stick and throw it at it, which wasn't a great decision because
that sounds like the worst thing you can do.
Well, I really didn't want to scare these turkeys, and so I threw the stick at it, and that skunk kind of hunched its back and looked at us. I was like, uh-oh. I was like, that was not a good idea. And he's legitimately freaking out at this point. And so I just kind of lean over and start waving my hat, which also wasn't that great of an idea, but it worked. And so the skunk turned around and starts running off, and I was like, and so I called again, and they gobbled at us, and I went silent. And they gobbled a couple more times on their own, but where they were down in this little bowl, it sounded like like every time they gobbled, it sounded like they were coming from a different direction. Mm-hmm. And so they gobbled a couple more times on their own, and best we could tell, they were kind of inching their way to the left. And then out of nowhere, they gobbled, and it was like, I'm right here, gobble. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, they're definitely straight left. I was like, you got to shift a little bit to get to where you can shoot straight left.
Right-handed shooter.
Yeah.
So he's perfect. Yeah.
But he's facing straight towards the bowl, but he's got his gun facing all the way to the left because that's where it sounded. I mean, it sounded like he was 50 yards from us when he gobbled. And I'm like, okay. And I pull my phone back out, go ahead and press record so I don't forget. And out of the corner of my eye, I just see 3 heads, boop, 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 straight in front of him. And his gun's facing to the left. And I was like, okay, this is going to make for a little bit of a difficulty for someone that's never shot a turkey before. Luckily, Mother Nature had our backs because there was a blowdown in between us and them. And so I'm sitting there watching them. I'm like, please walk to the left. Please walk to the left. Nope. They take a right turn and start, or I guess their left. They start going to our right. And they get behind a great big oak tree, all 3 of them. And he turned real quick and got back to the right, and I just told him to pick one out. Like, when they get clear, pick one out. And they get in front of us probably 20 yards. And I'm like, okay, shoot. Can you shoot him? And he's not talking to me. Not saying a word. His head's on the gun. The safety is off, and his head is on the gun.
He's worried about that skunk.
And I'm like, can you see him? Corbin, shoot him. Corbin, whoom, and I was like, okay, thank God. I thought you didn't see him. And he goes, no, I was picking out the biggest one. I was like, okay, that's fine. And so we get up there and start hooping and hollering, and he was like, and I asked him, I said, does this make you want to quit bass fishing? He goes, nope. And I was like, all right. And of course, we get back to the boat and start going back to the truck. He's like, man, we should have brought our fishing poles. We start catching. I'm like, man, just focus on the turkey you just shot. Quit thinking about bass fishing.
Oh, that's great.
But he was tickled, man.
That's
it was
awesome.
so cool to take people on their first turkey.
Yeah.
A lot of people killed their first turkeys.
There were a lot of youth turkeys killed this weekend, a bunch. I even know a couple guys around here whose kids killed one Saturday and killed one Sunday. So pretty exciting. And we had several come through the shop, got some new Polaroids, and yeah, man, it was a good weekend. Saturday morning was crummy weather around here, but boy, by Saturday afternoon it was gorgeous.
Was it?
And it was kind of gray, but like you could feel the air just kind of lightened up a little bit. You could tell it was going to be a little higher pressure on Sunday. And so I was in South Carolina at the Low Country Turkey Invitational this last week, and Boozer and I got really close on Thursday. I mean, we were inside 80 yards of 6 different birds that we had roosted the night before, and kind of in a spot that they're always in. I mean, they flew down and did the only thing they could possibly do to not walk down our gun barrel. I heard them fly down. I could hear them drumming on the limb. I heard them walking through the leaves. I did everything but see. Had I been able to visually see them, they'd be dead. Right. I mean, it was like they were that close.
Is it just too thick, or?
Man, it's kind of like, in those pines, you'll have like a block of pines, and then you'll have a road or a fire break, and then you'll have a little, like a little slough or a little ditch and a little finger of hardwoods or something, and then another, be a cutover, and then so it's lots of transitions. And we were at a spot where we were on the edge of these pines next to a slough. They're roosted over this swamp, and on either side of this little narrow slough, I mean, and it's dry. It's just kind of a low spot, but on both sides of it, there's like a road. And on the side we were on, which they always come to, there's mature pines. They're beautiful. They get burned every spring. On the side they went to is a dang, like 8-year-old pines that maybe hens would nest in, crummy looking stuff. Well, they flew down and just immediately went to those pines, and we're like, that's not what y'all are supposed to do. Are y'all new turkeys? Because we've killed turkeys there together. Boozer and I have for several years.
Turkeys.
We're like, who transplanted these new birds here? These are like Rios or something.
Osceola's making their way to South Carolina going on.
And while all that was going on, we had a bird behind us that was just, burning it down. And he got in on the action, started coming, and he closed 200 or 300 yards in just a couple minutes. And I thought any minute he's going to die. Mm-hmm. Mid him coming, Boozer spins. So I'm facing the front, Boozer spins to the back. This bird gets to probably 50 or 60 yards. We can hear him walking, hear him drumming, and never could put eyes on him. And it was like, we got back, and after a few beers, we just decided these were invisible turkeys that somebody had dropped there because,
hocus pocus turkeys.
hunting property that we know incredibly well. They were in this spot up next to a road where is like a kind of a corner. They have to walk out past us. This is a death trap,
right?
And it's not like we're terrible callers either. We had everything in our favor and never saw a turkey.
That's wild.
The next morning, took Tripp to a different property for the youth day of the invitational, and we were in turkeys. Parked, got out, and there happened to be 2 gobblers and 4 hens roosted like one tree from where we parked the truck. We parked the truck in the driveway of the house, and for whatever reason, the flock of turkeys we were hunting had roosted in the yard.
What?
Like got out, closed the door, walked, pitch black dark. We're like, wonder if they're going to gobble, and stop, just kind of listened. We were basically listening from the truck.
Yeah.
And I heard, looked up, and there's a hen, and she flew up and over the top of the pines. Old pines. And I'm like,
see ya.
She went to North Carolina. And then I hear another one, and she goes to Virginia. And then I hear a boom, 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 boom. He flies down. I'm like, well, that's a gobbler. And then boom, 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 boom. He flies down. I'm like, well, there's 2 gobblers. But then, we reset and got on a group of birds. It ended up being 3 jakes and a couple hens, and Tripp was, one of the first times that I've heard him say, I think I'm going to pass on the jake. I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, that's good with me.
Respect.
Yeah. And we heard a couple other courtesy gobbles, but no luck in South Carolina for us. So when we came home, I had told Tripp, since the youth weekend, it was 2 days, I had told Tripp that we would listen Saturday evening close to the house. And I've got a place that I don't always, it's not a lease. I tried to lease it. The guy was like, no, but if you ever want to hunt, just call me. And we've got a good relationship, and he's an older guy. He doesn't turkey hunt, but he's kind of odd about, he doesn't want people on his farm. And I totally understand that, but it's a place I can scout pretty easily from the truck and see. And so occasionally, when there's one that's just begging to be shot, I'll call in a favor. And Saturday evening, I drove down through there and took Tripp and was looking, and sure enough, there was a gobbler down in, kind of his biggest field in the bottom, just burning it up by himself, just I bet he gobbled 50 or 60 times in 5 minutes that we were sitting there. It was just wild. And it was obvious he's by himself, one, because he's standing in the open, but two, he's standing there gobbling like, this dude is
in the mood to get killed,
longing for a hen.
Yeah.
And that was about 6:30, 6:40, and so I knew
y'all should have rolled off in there and killed him.
Well, it was pretty close to dark on Saturday night. That wasn't too.
Yeah, I guess it would have been
wasn't too
10
far.
minutes short.
Yeah, and where he was, it would have been hard for us to get in position and mess with him. It'd been a lot easier to get him in the morning. And so I normally don't hunt on Easter Sunday, but came home and was like, well, dearie, we roosted one. And old mom was feeling kind of sorry for her little boy. He didn't get one in South Carolina. And so we got the hall pass to go Easter morning. Mm-hmm. We got in there in the dark, and it took a minute, but the bird we had been listening to ended up roosting on the next farm. He was probably 1,000 yards. I could just barely hear him gobbling, but he was gobbling right out the rip. Well, he gobbled enough to get another bird on the other side of us fired up. So we ended up being about man, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards out of position. He was across this big field, but man, I yelped at him a couple times, and he finally flew down. And when he hit the ground, he ran to us from 400 or 500 yards. I mean, ran. You would have thought I had a fan held up the way this turkey ran. I mean, dinosaur run. He stopped about 6 times to gobble. Did not strut, but he would run and he'd stop. Ow! Ow! Well, he was coming kind of from Tripp's right and behind us, really. We were set up for this bird to come from the left, and I'd cut some cedar branches and had us a nice little blind kind of there on the left. And I said, son, you're going to have to turn your right shoulder and put it into the tree, because when he comes around this little point of trees, you're going to have to shoot him. We're not hid from that side, and he's not going to be able to really see. We had a hen decoy. He's not going to really be able to see the decoy from afar off. And so when he comes around that corner, he's going to see the decoy and he's going to see us at the same time.
Right.
And you're going to have to drop the hammer. Okay, Dad, okay. He gets turned and he's in this deal now. He doesn't want a shooting stick, doesn't want anything. So his gun's on his knee and he's shooting a compact M2, but I mean, he weighs about 62 pounds soaking wet. I mean, it's still a big gun, for his frame. And he gets down on the gun, and I mean, I see him coming, and I mean, he's gobbling, and he gets to about 40 yards. There's a big cedar tree between us and him, and he stops, and boom. And I said, you hear him drumming? Yeah, yes, sir. Got him. All right, stay ready. He stands there and drums for probably 5 minutes. And then he finally breaks, and when he breaks and starts coming, I said, do not move. And he didn't move, but gun bobbed. I mean, that bird didn't take 2 steps out past the last tree he needed to, and he went, I mean, and zeroed right in. He said, whoop, tucked that wing, and put. And
it's so crazy how
it was
expert survivalists they are.
Gosh, I mean, he was one of those you could tell had not been yelped at. I mean, come running from 500 yards away, no decoy involved, no. I was like, geez. That
and the video that you had of him, I mean, that gun moved like an inch.
I know. Maybe. He barely bobbed that gun, and I was so zoned in that when he spooked, I said, you spooked him, and I said it a little more aggressive than I. But I was like I told him later, I was just narrating what was happening. Right. Don't move, son. Don't move. Coaching him through. Let him come. I just needed him to clear one spot. I mean, he's at 20 yards. Yeah. But he's coming from a side of us that was completely, totally wide open and exposed. I'd hit our left side, but not our right side, because I thought we were hunting a bird. I thought I was underneath him. Right. I expected when this bird flies down that he's dead. There's no hide needed. He comes from behind us, and anyways, it the way I said it, man, I think he thought I was upset with him, because he just straightway just hung his head, and then I saw him kind of bobbing just a little bit, and I said, "You all right?" And he turned and looked at it and pulled his face mask down. Boy, his face was just red and big old tears, and I was like, "Oh man," I felt about big.
That'll make you feel low.
I said, I'm sorry, pal. We all make these mistakes. I said, it could have been me. I don't know. I mean, but he definitely, saw what was going down. Yeah. And I said, so we kind of talked through the mechanics of it. And I said, how do you know that how did I know that he spooked? Like, tell me. And he was like, oh no, you saw it. And I was like, well, did you hear anything? And he was like, yeah, he clucked. I was like, that was not a cluck, it was a putt. And I said, that sound means I'm about to die. I'm getting the heck out of here.
Right.
And I said, when you hear that, the gig's up.
Yep.
So if you hear that and you can swing and get a shot, you better. There's no time to wait and let him settle down. Like, the deal is over right there. It's about a 3-second count. And
it's not a deer that you can kind of let relax for a minute.
Right. Yeah. And I said, the other way is that wing tuck. And I said, you remember when he lifted his head up and he said, and Tripp said, yeah, his head changed colors. And I said, exactly. It went from that white and red to just like that slate blue. And he stood straight up, and he said, yeah, tucked his wing. I said, well, if you ever have that again, you need to drop the hammer, because and he didn't have a shot. So he did good not shooting. The bird spooked before he had the ability to get a shot. But anyways, it was pretty painful.
Yeah.
And on the way, so we sat there, and I celebrate with a shot of Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah.
Tripp Halford celebrates with Oreos. So he had packed his Oreos and he was prepared, and he also packed a Coke. And he was, he was prepared for a celebration. And I appreciate that about a young man. He's planning ahead and calling his shots, and he looked at me and he said, "Dad, I'm about to eat some Oreos and drink a Coke."
It was just one of them mornings.
It was just like this. He was so sure of himself. It was kind of I'm about to participate in this celebration, whether you want me to or not.
You're more than welcome to join.
Yeah, exactly. So we enjoyed an Oreo together and just kind of celebrated. Well, the bird walked about 150 yards off, and he wasn't he was boogered, but he didn't run. Right. He really didn't see us. We didn't stand up and walk off. And I said, well, after we kind of settled down and got the tears dried, I said, why don't we try to make a circle and yelp at him from a different angle? Because he had gobbled so much the night before, and then so much, or the other bird had gobbled so much the night before, and he was still kind of gobbling, and this bird had gobbled so much that morning. I said, these hens might be laying. They might be, these guys seem like they're by themselves. If we give this guy 20, 30 minutes, he's liable to get fired back up. So he stood up to make a circle around him, and I'll be dang if he didn't gobble. And when he gobbled, he wasn't more than about 120, 150 most yards. And Tripp looked at me and he was like, "Is that the same bird?" And I was like, "Yeah." He walked over there and just stood there and kind of stood in the corner of this field. So we go to finish making this loop around him, and I look towards where he's at, and to get where we needed to get, we were going to have to walk through some open stuff. And I was afraid that if we did that, he could see us. So I'm looking down there at him. Well, I noticed that there was like a berm where farmer had pushed some stuff up, and it was dead between us and where he was. And I looked at Tripp and I said, since we got to get back to the house, for Easter, why don't we just walk straight to that big berm? And I said, man, we might get lucky and be able to just peek over it and, shoot him.
Yeah.
His eyes lit up, and I was like, let's just try. So we eased down to the berm, and we got right down there to the edge of the berm, and a crow flew over. And he gobbled, and he was 40 yards. We're standing up erect, upright with decoys. I got a decoy on my shoulder, and I'm like, about that time I could see him. I was just peeking over that berm, and he's like right there. And I'm like, all right, here's what we got to do. We got to sit down. And he goes and starts strutting. So Tripp climbs up the berm like on his belly, and he's pointed into this next field. Okay. And the bird is to his right about 40 yards, but he's got to walk out in front of us. We don't have a shot over into that corner. There's a giant post oak, like, 5 guys reach around kind of tree. And there's a big thicket. And I'm like, we probably can just get him to push out to the middle of the field. And even if he just pushes out towards the middle, still going to have a 40-yard shot. We don't need much. So he lays there. Well, he starts gobbling, and he gets fired up again. And he's just standing there, just just screaming. About that time, I hear a hen start yelping over to my left, and I'm yelping at him now. I'm keeping him hot. And this hen starts cutting up to my left, and here she walks straight up behind us. Mind you, we're laying flat on the ground. We've got a hen about 20 yards to our left, and we got this one just burning it down to our right. Mm-hmm. And she putts and gets nervous because, she's looking at us from the back side of this little berm, and we've got a decoy bag, and I've got a cup of coffee, and we got all our crap laying over here. When she putts, she walks through the little tree line into the field he's in. And I'm like, oh, this is about to be real bad for you. Yeah. She stands up there and she starts cutting and she starts yelping. And she's looking at us and looking at him. And I said, just stay on the gun. Any minute he's going to ease out. And he never did. But another bird started gobbling. And started gobbling. Every time he'd gobble, another bird started gobbling at him. Mm-hmm. And they got to going back and forth. So I'd cut at him. And I got him fired up. Well, here he comes marching. Just a few minutes later, I hear him fly across the ditch. Now there's 2 in the corner, and they're gobbling at each other. And, if you could have stood up, they're 40 yards right there. I can hear him drumming, hear him walking the whole 9 yards. Tripp's breathing heavy. He's dying. He's dying. And at some point, I thought I heard drumming from a different angle, but I couldn't tell. And I told Tripp, I said, I'm hearing drumming, and I wasn't sure if there was one coming around like beside us or behind us or some other angle. Well, I reached over to grab my cup of coffee, and it's caught something out of the corner of my eye. And I'll be dang if there wasn't a longbeard 30 yards behind us, just blown up, strutting. And I said, son, there's one behind us. And he goes, dang it, Dad, what the heck? And that bird had snuck in. And, of course, like I said, we're laying out in the open. So he kind of eases off. He never putts. He eases off. And he could probably have gotten a shot at that bird, but he was walking away. And I had him in laying prone, waiting on this other. And so I told him, I said, just stick with what you got. And, man, we did that for another 30, 40 minutes, and just he never wanted to come out of that corner. And so he ended up walking off, took the hen with him, walked off, and lives to see another day. But
that's wild.
It was.
That is wild.
It was one that, we sat there and reflected on it, and it was one that we'll definitely remember for a while. I told him, I was like, I can remember every one that I've killed, but not with the kind of clarity that I can remember the ones I've had to walk off, because those sting.
Whether you miss them or they just straight up beat you every one.
Sure.
Oh my gosh!
But as a dad, it was fun to be able to go through that together, and then to just be able to, with all the ramifications of Easter and Jesus' death and resurrection on Easter, it was pretty cool to be able to sit there and say, you know what, we're not defined by the things that we screw up.
That's right.
We're defined by the kindness and the righteousness of the good Lord who came and did a mighty work on our behalf. And I think that's only the second time I've ever hunted on Easter. Probably won't ever hunt on Easter again. But
that was God's way of saying, y'all need to get to church.
No, it was really special Sunday, and it was really cool. We've shared a lot of stuff together, but he has not experienced a lot of failure. And obviously I have experienced tons of it, truckloads of it, and probably will experience more tomorrow. Yeah. But just raising a youngin', you try to put them in situations where they're successful.
Right.
You got a shooting stick, you got a decoy, you got all these things. Well, when you start taking some of those training wheels off a little bit at a time, buddy, you're setting yourself up for, failure.
Right.
And mistakes, just natural mistakes that we've all made. But, man, when you're a little guy and you don't know that mistakes can actually happen,
right?
It just kind of seems like stuff, you hear about, but he had not really tasted that.
Yeah.
And so it was, I definitely would have preferred to have been, smiling in our Easter clothes, the dead gobbler, but it was a pretty cool day.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, after that one booger, I mean, him crying over boogering a bird, I mean, been there, especially at his age, but
showed me there's some passion there.
Oh yeah, I was just fixing to say, after that he wiped his face in his willingness to look at you and say, what did I do wrong, or what went wrong, and what do I need to do different next time? And I mean, hats off to him for not wanting the training wheels. I don't want a shooting stick. I want to be able to put it on my knee and maneuver the gun and shoot it. And, everybody's going to have those growing pains in any kind of hunting, especially turkey hunting. But
and I should have, part of it's on me too. I should have put him, when I knew where that bird was roosted and I knew that he was coming to us, I had time to kind of get him reset. But we just didn't have a lot of trees right there. And so I just said, just put your right shoulder on the tree, and be ready. We had such a big cedar tree. I really thought he'd take 2 steps out behind the cedar tree and get to shoot him. But from the cedar tree to where he had a good shot was pretty long ways. And it was just, oh, well.
Now you know for next time.
Now you know, I guess.
I mean, the curveball that those 3 birds threw us were about put a 16-year-old in a bind, that's hunted his whole life. And I mean, that's part of the game.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. And I could see in Tripp on this particular one, it amazed. I was videoing over his shoulder, and I was able to show him just that little bit of, nod in his gun. His gun bumped about 2 inches up, and, he was just breathing heavy. And I think I could tell it really, he was like, wow, they can see that well. I'm like, absolutely. Those are lessons you learn, but you only learn them the hard way.
Yep.
But
Yep.
Great
the best
weekend
lessons
and-
are learned the hard way most of the time.
yeah, great weekend. I hope the turkeys are having lots of turkey sex because I don't know about you, but this April 15th start date in Tennessee sucks pretty bad right now. I'm sure it's good for the turkeys, but man,
Yeah,
today was one of those days that sleeping in did not feel very good. It was like high pressure and clear skies. It was gorgeous this morning.
And seeing that turkey die on Saturday was like getting rebaptized, and I was sitting there thinking, I was like, where can I go next? Wait, I gotta go all the way to Mississippi. I still can't hunt in Tennessee next week.
I hope that's a short-lived thing. I really do. I'd rather. I mean, I don't know. I'm speaking with my emotions and not my conservation hat on.
Yeah.
So I trust TWRA, I guess, in terms of season dates for what's best for the population. But man, I'd rather shoot one and be done and start April 1st. I mean, April 15th didn't seem so far away in December, but from like May 15th to April 15th, that is a long time to be seeing other people kill turkeys and not be able to get in on it. So.
Yeah. But I don't know if we could call this a positive or a negative, but you and I, based off of the gobbler activity that we have witnessed over the last 2 days, they are
we're in the
right
middle of
as rain.
Yeah,
buddy. It's go time.
Split up good and, doing their thing. And that's the experience I've had the last 3 springs. We've had an April 15th start date in the river bottoms, the 5 counties in West Tennessee along the Mississippi River. But it didn't hurt so bad because I could hunt in Fayette County or, I could hunt these other counties that were not part of that late date. But I did notice that with that later start date, all the birds we hunted the last couple of years in the river bottoms were separated. There were no groups of 3 and 4, together, which, you didn't hear as much gobbling. But when I got on a turkey that was gobbling, I mean, it was like, okay, you're dead.
Yeah.
You're definitely gonna, you're tired of your little flock of hens and you're hearing strange voice over there. Yeah,
you're not trying to have to piss off a hen to get the whole flock to come over. Right. Like that's what I was telling my dad when I was telling him the story from Saturday. I was like, when I realized that it was 3 longbeards together and they didn't have any hens, I was like, we're gonna kill one of these turkeys. It was just one of those like they're fired up enough and they're they're acting right. Like I shouldn't say we're going to kill one. We're going to have the chance.
You're going to have the opportunity, right? And so that's, I mean, I guess you weigh the pros and the cons. I'm sure it's good for the breeding population, and that's good for the future. I'm sure it's good for some other ways, like just the overall harvest numbers. But it definitely is, as bad as it is to sit on the sidelines. In my view, it really improves the hunting quality because you get on a bird that's gobbling, you're in the game.
Yeah,
there's none of this 3 or 4 gobbling together and they fly down. They just shut up because they've got 100 hens with them. You know, they've thinned out by the middle of April. So
yeah. Growing up, we always did most of our damage towards the back half of April, and I guess we'll see. But it makes me nervous the amount of traffic that goes in the woods in Tennessee in the first 2 weekends of the season.
Yeah,
and if they're how they normally are these 2 weekends in April, they're going to take it off the chin.
Especially on public.
Especially on public,
yeah.
Private land, do what you want to do with your own property. That's up to you. But public land, it makes me nervous. It really does.
You're right.
So,
well,
I don't know.
Hopefully, by this time next week, we've got a few more stories to tell. We got opening weekend coming up this weekend. Weather looks crummy, but unless my truck breaks down, I know where I'm going to be Friday evening. And I'm hoping I watch one fly up.
I'm going to be getting ready for a wedding on Saturday. I've got one of my buddies getting married, so I'm still going. I'm still hunting Saturday and Sunday morning.
Does this guy drink Bud Light, or is he marrying a girl?
No, he's marrying a girl. Okay. And he turkey hunts too, but...
Wow.
Yeah, he was just as
He must
upset.
really love her.
That's exactly what I said. Apparently, she really wanted to get married at this venue, and this was the only date they had open for all of 2023. So he was like, okay. Like, all right.
How do you feel about getting married next year, dear?
And I was like, did you not think about that your anniversary is now going to be in turkey season?
Yeah.
Like, well, it's just...
They'll move it back to April 1st. Like, oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Like, you call the commissioner and let him know that you need 2 weeks of hunting before your anniversary hits.
Good for him. Good for him. Sorry for you.
Yeah. Wedding's not till 4:30, so I can hunt till 4.
Is he hunting that morning?
Oh, I hope
Don't
so.
answer
He
that
better.
question.
He better.
He better.
Cassie don't listen to it. Carter, I know you're going to be hunting in the morning. But
Well, good deal. All right. Well, like I said, hopefully we'll have another Beyond the Hunt here before too long.
I hope we're going to have a few more.
Yeah.
I hope I can have one
Some
tomorrow.
more front porch. Oh, yeah. You're Mississippian tomorrow,
Yeah,
aren't
I'm
you?
going to go south a little bit.
Well,
I hadn't been down there in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
It's greened up a bunch. I can tell you
I
that.
bet it has.
I
It was
drove through
already
it.
greened up a pretty good bit where I've been hunting. Mm-hmm. But we'll see.
All right. Well, you're going to do our little takeout thing here. How do we close this down?
We appreciate y'all stopping by and listening in. This has been another episode of the Rolling Thunder Podcast.
We'll catch you on the next one.
See y'all.